Okay, good morning, class. And let's quickly move on to the next chapter that we are taking. The chapter is Early Kingdoms. Now, earlier we read about the early man's life. We know what all were the ways he did. Earlier, he lived a nomadic life. Then, gradually, he lived a settled life. And once he started settling, he lived in a tribe, a small group where two, three families clubbed in together. Gradually, this tribe increased the number and they started setting up villages with every tribe having its headman as the elderly family member. And gradually, they learned to divide their work. Now, since they had settled life, they didn't have to go anywhere for hunting because they were growing their own crops, they were practicing agriculture, they were practicing pastoral farming, pastoralism, that is, where the animals were reared for their food, milk, and other products. Then came a time when gradually these villages started increasing their territories. People living in a certain area, the head of that area started fortifying itself. Fortifying means अपने को घेराबंदी करना. घेराबंदी means to occupy the area by drawing territories, by drawing lines that this is my area, do not cross it. So then came the concept of kingdoms, जिन्हें हिंदी में कहेंगे राज्य. Then the kings and the queens came, and the king was basically the most powerful man. So it was the tribes, then the villages, then the groups which enlarged and later on gave way to the kingdoms. So here we are with the new lesson, early kingdoms. Now, our knowledge of the early kingdoms is based on the Vedic text. Please underline Vedic text and then also underline Buddhist text. Please switch off your mic if you disturb. So, Vedic texts and Buddhist texts were the two sources from where the information is taken about this period. Now, when we read Vedic text is a vast text. It has four Vedas, you remember? Now, out of those Vedic texts, there were two which talked about the early kingdoms. And we come to know about them through the Brahmanas and Upanishads. So Vedic texts had two headings, Brahmanas and Upanishads, which were the source of knowledge about these early kingdoms. Then the Buddhist text, we read about the Jataka tales in Buddhist texts, which talk about the early kingdoms. Now these texts refer to the Janpadas and Mahajanpadas. As I told you, the Vedic texts and the Buddhist texts both discussed about the Mahajanpadas and Janpadas. They were kingdoms or republics in the Ganga Valley. Now, the area in and around Ganga, that means wherever Ganga river flew, it was covered. In those areas, most of the kingdoms were present. Okay. Now, when I said flew, it was not flying or something. Flow is I'm talking of the flow of the river. I'm talking of. Okay. Now, existed about 2,500 years ago. These kingdoms or republics had well defined boundaries, and some of them later became powerful empires. So now these kingdoms had well defined boundaries. As I told you, they started fortifying their areas and calling those areas as theirs. So there were proper boundaries drawn in these kingdoms, and the one of the prime example of a well-defined kingdom was the Magadha Empire. The Magadha Empire. If you see this map here you'll see the Magadha Empire. The present day Patna and Bihar area. Can you see this? This Magad was a big, huge Mahajanpada, which we talked of. Okay, now we come on to the next heading, the Janpadas. The Aryans were organized into many tribes. Each tribe was called Jana. Now, as I told you earlier, the people were living, early man was living in a tribe. So these tribes or clans, as we call them, were later on known as Jana. Jana means people. The tribe often fought against each other through the process of war, expansion, and conquest. These tribes came in close contact with other and large kingdoms emerged. So now these tribes were fighting amongst each other just to gain supremacy. Supposing I am tribe A and next to me lives at a little distance tribe B. Now, just since I'm the leader, I would go and fight out with tribe B. Why? Because tribe B is the closest one. And supposing I'm victorious, I will occupy tribe B and start calling it as tribe A. So, this is what was happening. The kingdoms from the Aryan times were trying to occupy and expand through war and conquest. Their territories were expanding because of this, and whoever was victorious was called the most powerful one. And one example of the most powerful kingdom at that time was the Magadha Empire. Now, these kingdoms came to be called as Janpadas. Now, Janpadas literally mean the land where the Jana or tribe set its foot and settled down. So let us break the term Jana and Padar. So Jana means people or a tribe or a set of people. Pada means the foot, pair. So the meaning of Janapada is that the place or the land where the people or the tribe set its foot for the first time and settled down. Now, each Janpada was named after the ruling clan of each area. Now, whoever was the victorious Janpada or the king, it was named, each Janpada was named after that particular clan or a tribe. Yeah, it is interesting to note how the Rajas were selected in the period. Some of the Rajas in the past were selected by the Sabha. Now, there were two ways of selecting the Rajas. The Raja was the head, the king, as we know him now. So the Rajas in this period were selected by their supremacy. And how was their supremacy known? Because of the Sabha. Now, what is Sabha? Sabha is a group of people. They sat together, the wise people, they sat together, they took out names of two, three people whom they thought they were capable. And out of these two, three people, voting was done among them. And whoever they found more capable was considered as the king. Later on, a change in the selection of the Raja took place. Now, to be recognized as the Raja, the king had to perform the Ashwamedha or horse sacrifice. Gradually, kingship became hereditary. So now, as I told you, there were two ways in which the king was selected. One was through the Sabha, which we discussed just now, that the early people, the wise people, selected the king among themselves, whom they thought they were capable. Now, the next method was the king, whoever out of many thought that he is more powerful, performed Ashwamedha. Now, what is Ashwamedha? It is a horse sacrifice. That means a horse was set up to roam around freely, crossing the kingdom's territory. Supposing I'm a I am a king of territory A. So my horse was set free to go and cross other territories. And whichever territory thought that I am supreme, they would not tie up the horse. They would let the horse roam around freely in their territory. But the kingdom which thought that, oh my God, this king is thinking that he's very powerful, he would catch hold of the horse and then proclaiming that, okay, we are going to have a fight. And whichever kingdom won was supreme. So this was the Ashwamedha sacrifice, where the horse was let loose and the kings who did not tie the horse were supposed to recognize the supremacy of the other king whose horse it was. Clear? So that was the one way of selecting a king. And later on, the kingship became hereditary. In the later years, kingship became hereditary. Hereditary means king's son became the next king. It was no such thing but that Sabha was set up or to decide who the next king would be or the horse sacrifice was to be done. It was later on that the kingship became hereditary. That means the king's son automatically became the next king. Let's read about Did You Know? Archaeologists have excavated many settlements in Janpadas such as Purana Kila in Delhi, Hastinapur near Meerut, and Atrangi Khera near Ita, that is Uttar Pradesh. They also found out that people lived in huts and kept cattle and other animals. They also grew a variety of crops such as rice, wheat, barley, pulses, sugarcane, sesame, and mustard. So this is a small little footnote telling you the early kingdoms in the present day. So the settlements which are still to be seen in remains are the places near Purana Kila, then near Meerut, then near Eta. These are the places where earlier kingdoms had their origin and were found there. And there the traces have been found that people lived in huts, etc. They lived a settled life. They also grew crops, and the names of the crops are given to you. Now they have given you in detail what Ashwamedha Yajna is. Yajna means the yajna. Ashwamedha Yajna. So yajna in English means yajna in Hindi. Okay. So these yajnas or these yajnas were performed in which what happened? A horse was let loose to wander freely, guarded by the Raja's soldiers. If the horse wandered into another kingdom and was stopped, the two rulers had to fight. If the horse was allowed to pass, it meant that the ruler accepted the power and might of the Raja who wanted to perform the yajna. So, as I told you, the horse was allowed to set free and roam around in other people's land along with the soldiers, and whichever kingdom stopped that horse or tied it, it was that particular kingdom wanted to have a fight with the king of the kingdom which had set the horse. And supposing they allowed the horse to roam around, that means they accepted that yes, we believe that this particular king is powerful. So it was Ashwamedha Yajna. After the return of the horse, the Raja performed a yajna where all those who accepted his sovereignty were invited. So now, after the roaming of the horse was over, after it roamed around in two, three kingdoms, the horse was made to come back to the kingdom where it belonged to, and then a big, huge sacrifice was performed, where all the kingdoms who allowed the horse to roam around were asked to come as a guest. They were invited to the kingdom and they accepted the sovereignty. What is sovereignty? To accept the powerful rule of that particular kingdom. The horse was sacrificed, the Raja was accepted as supreme, and gifts were given to him by other Rajas and the ordinary people. So basically, they were given the right that they were the most powerful kings, and the other Rajas brought along with them, as they were invited, they brought along with them the gifts, etc. And also, the gifts were given by the ordinary common people. Priests performed the ritual. The priests, that means the Pandits or whoever was responsible for religious ceremonies, they performed all the rituals. Now, please see that this map is done. How will you do this map? The bold capital letters, like the one written here, Magadha, Kashi, Malla, All these Anga, Kosala, Vatsa, Chedi, Asaka, Matsya, Avanti, Panchala, Kuru, Cambodia, and Gandhar. All these bold letters, these were the Mahajanpadas. And you are only supposed to write about these Mahajanpadas first in one map. Listen carefully. You will first write all about these Mahajanpadas. Clear? Then can you see this ancient cities marked in red circles? These were the ancient cities. And out of these so many ancient cities, you will be marking these, put a tick mark on the cities that you'll be marking. Mark Takshila, mark Hastinapur, Indraprastha, mark Shravasti, Mathura, mark Ujjain, Vidisha, mark Kaushambi, Varanasi, mark Lumbini, mark Vaishali, Patliputra, Rajgir, and Tamluk. I don't want any other thing. I've nearly covered all. So the best thing would be you take a river map, first mark the main capitals, that is the Mahajanpadas which are given here, and then you will write the ancient cities which were prevalent on the same map. So on one map, first you will mark all the Mahajanpadas. Once you locate all the Mahajanpadas, then you go on marking the cities. Now please see that you do not mark any rivers. On a river map, do this so that you know the location quite clearly. And if you see, most of the Janpadas were near and around the Ganga River. Can you see the Ganga River? This is the flow of the Ganga River. I'm showing you the Ganga River. Yeah? So throughout the Ganga River, basically, most of the Janpadas and Mahajanpadas were. Now let's quickly read out about Mahajanpadas. Children, can you hear me? Just one of you open your mic and just let me confirm.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay, switch off and let's
Yes,
begin
ma'am.
quickly. Okay, got it. Mahajanpadas. What? Please switch off your mic. Mahajanpadas. The larger and more powerful Janpadas were called Mahajanpadas. Now, Janpadas, we know that Jana, where the people first set up their foot, was known as Janpada. Now, what is Mahajanpada? Maha means the more powerful among the other Janpadas, which were more powerful, were known as Mahajanpadas. Clear? There were 16 Mahajanpadas. Most important of these were Magadha, Kosala, Kasi, Avanti, Vaishali, and Lachavis. So please underline these names which were more powerful than the rest. And the more powerful ones were Magadha, Kosala, Kasi, Avanti, Vaishali, and Lachavi, etc. Mahajanpadas were of two kinds. Now, the most powerful kingdoms were of two kinds. One, the monarchical, and the other was the republican. जो भी महाजनपद थे, जो भी huge, vast, strong kingdoms थे, they were divided into two types. One was the monarchical. Now, as the word tells you, monarchical, it means the king or the queen ruled over those kingdoms. Now, what is republican? So, the republican form of Mahajanpadas were those which had the people the power to select the king. Clear? The king was not hereditary in republican Mahajanpada. I will first go through the monarchical Mahajanpada and then come on to republican. It will be clear to you. So, monarchical Mahajanpadas were those where the king was the head of the kingdom He performed Vedic sacrifices. He was very powerful. He had a strong army and many sources of income. Magadha, Vatsa, Avanti, and Kosala were some of the monarchical Mahajanpadas. As I told you, these are the examples of some Mahajanpadas where the king was ruling, where the king was elected as the head. He was all in all powerful and he performed the Vedic sacrifices. He was looked as the supreme power there. Then, next heading we come across is the Republican. Now, the Republican, there was no king. It was ruled by a group of people elected by the common people. Decisions were taken by a simple majority, and the system worked democratically. The Shakyas and the Lichavis, underline Lichavis also, were important Republican Janpadas. So one way was the king was the head in certain Mahajanpadas, so they were known as monarchical Mahajanpadas. Then the other way was where people elected their ruler wisely through a majority of votes. Whoever they considered was more powerful and capable was elected and was made the king. This was just as the democracy which we have right now, where we elect our prime minister and chief minister, etc. It is through our votes that we select our representatives. So this shows that even in the earlier times, the system of democracy was followed in certain janpadas. And the example of the kingdoms, the Mahajanpadas, which followed this kind of system was the Shakyas and the Lichavis. Now, did you know? Come to that box, let's read it. The Mahajanpadas, most of them were fortified. That means they had proper boundaries. Huge walls of wood, bricks, or stone were built around them. Forts were built for, now why were the forts built? For protection against attack by enemies. Number two, to display the might, power, and wealth of the rulers. Number three, to make it easy for the king to control the people inside the fortified area. Think of the enormous labor, cost, and planning required to build these forts. So now, in the olden times, also, the powerful kingdoms built up the forts, and those forts were built for three reasons. Firstly, to protect the kingdom against the attack by the other enemy. Secondly, to display how powerful I am. See how powerful walls I have constructed so that no enemy could cross them. To show the king's power and prestige, the walls were built. And third was so that the king can control his kingdom. Once he knows that this is my territory, within these walls, the people are mine, he could look after those people well. So these were the reasons why the fortifications were done. Position of the king. Position of the king. The king was the most powerful person in the kingdom. He protected his people. He stood as the guardian of dharma. So now the king was the powerful person who protected his kingdom and people in the kingdom, and he followed the rule of dharma. He was a very, God-fearing person. He looked after his people as it was his dharam to look after the people. He was like a father figure to them. He was assisted by in his work by the Pandit Purohit, the Senani, and the Amatyas. Please underline these three people who helped him. The Purohits, that means the people who were good in religious matters. Then Senani, that means the Sainik, the soldiers. And the Amatyas, that means the people who looked after the land and revenue, etc., the records of the people. So these were the three who helped the king in his work in the kingdom. Now let's see the work they do. The Purohita acted as the chief priest and king's advisor. So see the work of the Purohita, he was the priest and the chief advisor. Then next, the Senani looked after military matters. So it was the military matters which were looked after. Then Amatyas looked after the administration, judiciary, and revenue collection. So all these three headings are very clear when various fields these people assisted the king. The taxes collected by the king were spent on maintaining his army and officers. So whatever money was collected from these various taxes, they were used to help the military to keep the army more strong and for the officers to be paid as their salaries. So we stop here for today. I hope we are clear with everything that I